Hey, how you doing? It's Steve. In this video, I'm going to show you how I work with EQ and compression on a beat loop, like the kind where you have the kick drum and the other parts of the sounds in one loop. A lot of times, like in house and techno, you split out your kick drum into a separate channel, but you don't always have to do that. Sometimes you have a cool loop, the kick drum is cool, and it's doing something good in the rhythm, so you don't always have to chop out the kick drum. Sometimes you want it in there. And let me show you what I do with the DrumBus plugin, EQing after compression, and how DrumBus can kind of reveal some problems that you need to solve. So here's the track we're working on. I'm gonna mute down the other sounds, get rid of the effects, so we're only listening to the beats. There's my DrumBus. And I've got a bunch of other little cool claps and layers, crash in there. And here's the beat loop we're gonna work with on track 7. So you can hear it's got some low end stuff and some highs in there. It's just an audio file right now. And there's this low bump, right? So what are we gonna do? Well, we're gonna use DrumBus to bring up the overall level with compression, and then we're gonna EQ to cut out some of the nasty frequencies that show up. So we're doing EQ after compression. Compression's raising the volume of everything in the loop, then we're EQing to cut out some nasty resonance that shows up and kind of tune in to make it fit in the track. So once again, here's all the drum beats. And on track 7, I'm gonna go before, after. Okay. Before, after. My favorite part is that little thing that goes, it's like a reversed hi-hat kind of a sound. And to show you what I'm doing with this, let me bypass each one of these different EQ filter things and go straight to DrumBus. I just built this rack to map the knobs easy for push, which is kind of fun. So let's kind of go back to zero out everything, turn off the compression, and the wet dry is 100%. So this is kind of our starting position. Turn off the boom. First thing I'm gonna do is basically switch on the compression. DrumBus has a great native compressor. It's gonna jack up the level and just make you hear more. It's like having auto makeup gain on your compressor. So compressor's in, and you can pick between soft, medium, and hard. I'm gonna leave it on the hard setting. Let's add a little bit of drive, see how that sounds. And what happens if we add some crunch? Now, I don't want to crunch out the low end bump. I want to keep that like a clean, low frequency thing. So we're going to kind of go quickly through this. I do want a little bit of damping on here. Not a ton, but just to take off some of that like crispy highs. And what's really fun in DrumBus is the transient knob. Listen what happens when I go positive and negative. That makes it more squished, where you hear more of like the tails. And when you go negative, it's like a gate that chops out the silence in between the hits and makes it really snappy. So usually I like to run my drum loops a little bit negative, keep them nice and snappy, then I add reverb later so the hits are precise, micro timing in the rhythm, really quick and in. So that's my basic drum setting. Now, what are we doing with the low end? I like to keep a spectrum analyzer on the master channel and always see where the lowest frequency of a loop is happening so I can match that in with my sub bass tracks and everything. There's a bunch of sub bass happening, right? Okay, we mute all those. Our drum loop is coming up around 50 hertz. Put the mouse on the line, read the frequencies in the little box. So the low bump is around 50 hertz. So that means if I want to add some boom, I can set this at 49, 50 hertz. Turn that into like an 808 bassline boom. It doesn't need a lot of bass boom because that's already a big, clean single hit. Now let's go to our EQ. This says set the frequencies for your own beat. If you download this rack, you need to change your own frequencies. These are not frequencies for every song and every drum loop. It's going to be like the ones that match your loop. What am I cutting? What am I boosting? And why? Well, let me get my EQ on here and we'll go to band 5. First of all, I'm going to boost this up. 834, kind of a papery sound. Up above 1K, you get into the snare drum brightness, but right around here, it's kind of... Do I want that in my track? No, I do not. And I didn't notice that frequency until after I did compressor and makeup gain in DrumBus. So I'm going to take out a bunch of that frequency with kind of a wide curve, because that was a pretty obvious sound. Next up, band 4, 294 hertz. Kind of a resonant tone. It's obvious when I boost it. At flat, you don't really notice, but that's cleaner. So when I'm doing EQ cuts, the pro level EQing is don't compare cutting and boosting. Try comparing cutting and neutral. It's like a little doot, doot, doot. So I'm cutting that out. Then we go down to the next frequency is band 3. Oh, I want that on. I want band 3, 184. A little boost right there. Kind of bring out like the tone in a smaller speaker system to get some of that like upper harmonic stuff happening. Next one, band 2. Oh, band 1 is at 105. That's an octave above that 50 hertz bump. Kind of ringing. And I'm taking that down mostly because there's a lot of other sub bass parts in the track that I don't want to have in here. And then at 50 hertz, I was playing with that to find the bass beat, but I don't want to boost it right there. So that's basically what I'm doing with the EQ. So we can minimize that. Minimize that. Next, what's up? Remove low rumble, because DrumBus is going to boost the low frequencies. We can see on here, it's big up to 50 hertz. Do I want a lot of like crud below that? No, I don't. So to give myself some kind of mix tools and keep the low end clean, I put a high pass filter into the rack, and let's power that on. Up there, that low bump is gone. Down at 26 hertz. There's not too much low end rumble, but this is a really useful tool. Some drum loops, the kick drum is huge and it goes all the way down to 25 hertz. And that's too much bass for most speaker systems. So I put in a high pass filter. I'm going to park it right around 48, 49, 50 or something to keep the low end as clean as I can. And then what's fun is a final tone adjustment with a simple channel EQ, low, mid, high. And you can dial that in. This is something that I would do while listening to the mix to blend this with the other drums in the track. It always sounds good to sweep filters around and play with EQs in solo, but you're not going to really get the drum loop sitting in with your other drum tracks until you are listening to the other drum tracks. So now I got channel beat 1 over here on track 7. I'm going to play with my EQ highs and lows and hear what do I need to make this drum loop sit with the rest of the drums. Kind of darker. Try this when you're using your plugins. Close your eyes and see if you can really hear what you're doing instead of looking at some big graphic interface. Ooh, that's like way too crispy. Can I find neutral with my eyes closed? I think it's around here. Minus 0.4, I almost got it. I'm gonna add a little bit of high frequency because that low end is super bumpy. Maybe take down a little bit of low. I want that low pulse coming in the middle of the rhythm. Boot, doot. Let's bring in the other instruments. And now I can dial in how much of that low pulse do I want from track 7. Don't want it super boomy, just want it nice and in the beat. You can see on the spectrum that low bump is coming up by itself. There isn't a lot of other stuff in the sub bass. At the instant when that beat hits, there aren't a lot of other low things happening. and about a 2 dB boost in the low end. So what I did right here was I took beat 1 at a beginning position like this, which was okay. Basically added volume and compression with the drum bus, a little bit of tone shaping, and then I did some EQ to get more of the frequencies I want and less of the frequencies I don't want, so that as I bring it into the mix, I can dial in the beat to sound good with the other drum tracks, and then dial in all those drum tracks together to sound good with the subs, instruments, and vocals. A real connection. So that's how I approach drum mixing. There's a lot of layers. Every sound is gonna get some EQ and compression on it. Sometimes you do EQ before compression if you wanna totally cut out some sounds and then compress what's left. In this example, I was compressing first to raise the level of everything in a drum loop, and then use EQ to do subtractive notches and a little bit of tone shaping boosting to get the sound I want to get these sounds to sit together. I hope that's useful for you. Please subscribe, like the channel, check the links in the description where you can download some of these Ableton racks to play with on your own drum tracks. And let me know, drop a comment if you like this video. I'll be making more soon. Thanks a lot. See ya.